Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this Planning Committee meeting here at Lichfield District Council, today being the 4th of September 2023. And this evening we have the agenda starting off with the apologies for absence. So if I could please take those apologies. I believe we have Powell, Councillors Powell, Sonia Wilcox, Councillor Galvin and Councillor Harvey Coggins. Are there any others that I need to record, please? Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, do we have anyone with a particular declaration of interest which needs to be disclosed this evening, please? Councillor Ashton, please.
I'm Councillor Stowe Ward with the Tree Preservation of the Cathedral Schools.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ashton. Councillor, I believe it's Checkland. Councillor Checkland.
I'm a foster child at the Cathedral School, and I've met Mr. Bain at the school a couple of times with him.
Thank you very much, Councillor Checkland. Any others? Yes, Councillor Hughes, please.
Well, I'm also a councillor for Stowe Ward, so I apparently have a interest.
Okay, thank you. In the interests of consistency, thank you very much indeed. Any others then, please? Okay, that's that. So that was item 2 on the agenda. Item 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting, and this is a meeting which was held, it's 5 weeks ago now since we last met because of the bank holidays and everything. So if you're happy, having had the minutes circulated electronically, members, if you're happy that I sign those as a true and correct record, but I believe Councillor Hughes, you wish to just make a comment.
Just to say, okay, it's a business in my ward. The objection or representations on the demolition of the multi-story car park were made by Mr. Adam Notland.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much indeed for that that amendment. It will be recorded. So subject to that being recorded, are you happy then that I sign the minutes as a complete record of the events which took place on the 31st of July? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, members. That's now been done. Just before we start the agenda for the various applications, I need to make an announcement. The first is that the planning application, which is effectively the tree preservation order on your agenda, which is 2023/00481/TPO. That will not be taking place this evening. We are still seeking further information, and it would be inappropriate for us to be discussing that this evening, subject to that information being received hopefully in time for the next meeting in October. So that application, which is on your agenda, members, will not be taking place. I also have to tell you that another item on the agenda, which has also been taken off, is the Friary one. And that is, let me just find out that number for you. So the Friary one, which is 22/00992/COUM. That has been taken off the agenda, and I shall give you the reason why in just a moment. The main reason for this is that the case officer has just been called to a family emergency, and there is insufficient time for another officer to review and adequately present the case this evening. It has also come to light that the consultee response was overlooked at the time of writing the report and will have to be reviewed in the intervening period. The case will therefore be brought forward to the next planning committee for consideration on Monday, the 2nd of October 2023. So apologies that that has had to happen, but it is due to unforeseen circumstances with the planning officer, and of course we do wish her well with the issues that she's having with her family member at the moment. So if we can move on then, members, please. So the first one that we're going to be discussing is the second of the TPOs on the agenda, which is 2023/00482/TPO. Now, this is the trees at the Cathedral School in the Cathedral Close here at Lichfield. And to take us through this report, I have now on my right-hand side Mr. Gareth Hare, who is the arboriculturalist here at Lichfield District Council. And Gareth will take us through this report and explain any of the issues which we may have. Gareth, I will hand over to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair. The location is on the screen with the red dot that's behind 19, the close. Tree preservation order was made in response to section 211 notice of conservation area notification for the felling of 2 English walnut trees, 2 hazel trees within the school grounds. The removal of the hazel trees was not objected to. They weren't seen as significant. Trees are visible from Gale Lane and the close, are in view of visitors, staff and pupils attending the site, and also visible to surrounding residential properties. One objection to the order was received only in relation to T2, and you have a look at the report. The TPO documents are at the end showing both T1 and T2 in context with the school. So this is only in relation to T2. Correspondence was entered into, and the objection has not been negotiated away, which is why the report is before you this evening. The objections are summarised within the report. If we go to objection A, the principal objection, there we go, the tree again shown from an aerial photograph. And we've got the locations of the photographs, which I'll come to in due course. The first objection, objection A, was the risk of walnut exposure. So that's the exposure to walnut fruit to one child at the school who has a severe nut allergy. And evidence was provided by the school on the severity of the allergy and the likely outcome if exposed, and it's described as an irreversible effect. Clarification was sought on the mode of exposure, i.e. whether it's exposure of any kind, aerial or ingestion, but no clarification on that has been offered as yet. The text of the objection, the discussion into it goes into the various relevant legislation, so it considers the legislation and the statutory guidance in relation to this particular point. I won't go through it all, but section 100 of the Children and Families Act, the statutory guidance in connection with that section of the Act, the Health and Safety at Work Act, which is also relevant in terms of providing a place of work or a place of employment under the employer's control, which is as safe as practicable. It also considers the National Tree Safety Group guidance, which is common sense risk management of trees. And it's worth stating that the NTSG has one underpinning fundamental concept, and that's the evaluation of what is reasonable, and reasonable is the key word here. That should be based upon a balance between benefit and risk. And that's what we've sought to do in investigating this particular objection. So the benefits afforded by the tree are considered within the reasons for the TPO and are defined in terms of amenity as required by the legislation and the guidance. From investigation, the tree is visible from the close, from Gale Lane and from surrounding properties. Again, we'll look at the photograph shortly. It's also in view of pupils, staff and visitors to the school, and it's been noted as having a considerable safe, useful life expectancy. So I've estimated that the tree is around about 70 years old, probably not quite middle-aged for a walnut, so it could be expected to live to around 200 years. So a substantial period yet left to it. In the view of the council, the amenity and the other benefits afforded by T2 are substantial and capable of being maintained for a considerable period, again due to the longevity of the species. Considered the risk imposed in terms of its seasonal nature. Clearly, it's a fruiting tree. They're only on the tree for a period probably July through to late September, early October, and looked at how that risk might be managed, and trying to reduce that risk to a level that is as low as reasonably practicable. So again, that's referenced within the National Tree Safety Group guide. And that's trying to manage that risk while that particular pupil is within the relevant part of the school. I understand that pupil will move across into another part of the school in due course as they progress through their education. So there were discussions about how that risk might be managed. Removal of nuts from the playground on a regular basis, the use of temporary barriers, and the potential for nuts to be picked prior to them falling on the playground. There is an element of self-management in this equation as well, in terms of how the pupil manages their own risk through self-awareness, and also the awareness of staff and other pupils around them. The pupil is aware of their condition. They will have knowledge of how to avoid contact with the nuts and nut products, and the supporting staff around them will also have knowledge of that issue and be well aware that that needs to be managed. So that brings us on to objection B, in terms of the solution that was proposed in mitigation does not eliminate 100% of the risk. And I think it would be fair to say that it's impossible to eliminate 100% of that risk unless all nut-bearing trees are removed from the school grounds. But the solution proposed in mitigation was to use a mobile elevating work platform, in common parlance a cherry picker, to allow access to the crown of the tree to pick unripe fruits before they fall. And the opinion of the school is that this method would be unsuccessful, as it wouldn't eliminate 100% of the risk. However, that could be combined with some of the other measures that I've mentioned in terms of sweeping the playground and obviously self-awareness, etc., that I've mentioned in that previous objection. And just highlighting it again, that if the aim was to remove 100% of the risk, then all those trees that bear nuts within the school grounds would need to be removed. The objection is only predicated on T2. T1 of the order is also a walnut, and obviously that tree will produce nuts, and there would still be some risk depending on where the pupil is within the school. There's also a group of beech trees subject to a different TPO, which overhang a portion of the school grounds, and obviously they're also a nut-bearing tree during last years. Objection C relates to the health and safety of pupils with nut allergies. They're at risk if the tree remains. Those points have been dealt with in the foregoing objections. Objection D relates to the unnecessary anxiety and stress to families of the children at risk. And again, it's appreciated that those families would have well-founded concerns regarding the retention of the tree. However, those could be addressed via the control measures, or this is the opinion of the council that those could be addressed via the control measures and the attendant risk to their children. Objection E relates to the visibility of the tree from Cathedral Close and the amenity it provides. And in terms of that, we'll go to the photograph shortly. The photographs of the tree show it to be visible from the close, where it affords amenity to visitors and residents. It can be viewed from the school buildings and from points within the grounds, and it contributes to the verdant character of the school setting. As with all trees, there's a variety of opinions as to how they contribute to their surroundings, but it's unlikely, given its size and appearance, that the tree is unappreciated for the amenity it provides. So the objections have been carefully considered in light of the evidence presented and the potential mechanisms for managing the risk, and the relevant legislation has been examined and taken into account. If I can just take you to the photographs. So see photograph 1. The tree is there, clearly visible from the close. Again, that's the crown of the tree above the 19. Two alternative views. Again, the tree is there. And this is from Gale Lane. The tree can be seen in glimpses from Gale Lane. This is to give obviously an impression of what can be seen from Gale Lane, but the view of the tree from the rear of those properties obviously is uninterrupted. Again, slightly more distant view from Gale Lane, but that tree can be seen very clearly from the rear gardens of those properties. So on the basis of the evidence and the available options for managing the risk, it's the view of the council that the pupils of the school can be successfully safeguarded whilst retaining the tree. Thank you.
Gareth, thank you very much indeed for that very comprehensive précis there. If that's not an oxymoron, I think it probably is. Before we take any questions or points from members, I shall ask the speaker to speak for 5 minutes. So, Mr. Mayor, John Mayor, if you'd like. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Main, isn't it? Yeah, Mr. Main.
Mr. Main, I do beg your pardon. I have it written down slightly differently. Mr. Main, I beg your pardon, sir. Mr. John Main, you have 5 minutes. So if you'd like to just step forward and take your seat, if you would. Thank you very much. You may not be familiar with the protocol for the planning committees, but you do have 5 minutes during which you can speak and make your points. With 30 seconds still to go, you will be reminded that you have 30 seconds. And then once the 5 minutes has expired, you will be informed by Christine Lewis on my left. So she'll inform you at 4.5 minutes that you've got 30 seconds left. And then at 5 minutes, she will ask you to stop speaking if you are in fact still speaking at that point. Is that okay? Your time will start as soon as you begin. Thank you.
Dear Mr. Chairperson, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Main, Director of Operations at Lichfield Cathedral School. The TPO under consideration today was not in place 12 months ago. Indeed, it was only put in place when the school applied to remove the tree, which was required because of the location of the tree within a conservation area. There's no doubt, as Mr. Harris stated, that this walnut tree is a beautiful, mature tree. And Lichfield Cathedral School is certainly a friend of the natural environment. We've facilitated the planting of hundreds of trees, both ourselves and in partnership with others, at both of our sites in Lichfield and Longden in the previous few years. So why do we want to remove this tree? I suspect that many applications you receive related to TPOs are in relation to things like building work, development opportunities, or to improve views, but the removal of this walnut tree is about child safety. And I would like to make clear there are no plans for development on the site where the tree is currently located. A major part of my job is to ensure that any risks in the school are managed to be as low as reasonably practical. And the tree in question overhangs one of our playgrounds that has a tarmac surface. And using that playground is a 10-year-old child with a very severe nut allergy. Although I would add that there are 9 other children within the school currently also with nut allergies who could be affected, but to a lesser degree. His allergy is of the seriousness that he is currently undergoing experimental therapy treatment with the paediatric allergy consultant at Sandwell and Birmingham, West Birmingham Hospital. The treatment is in specific relation to peanuts due to the risk to life that he faces, but his allergy extends to all nuts. A letter received from the hospital states any unintentional exposure to nuts of children with allergy to peanuts or tree nuts can lead to severe allergic reaction with irreversible effect. The letter also points out, as Gareth has already stated, that we have an obligation under Section 100 of the Children and Families Act 2014, which places a statutory duty upon the school to support pupils with medical conditions. You may be sceptical about the risk a walnut dropping into a playground may have. When I showed his parents the location of the tree, the palpable fear showed by the child's mother, who has a similar allergy, when she saw walnuts lying on the ground in the garden where the tree is located, convinced me that action has to be taken to minimise any risk to this child. The risk is that walnuts falling into the playground could get trampled underfoot and transferred to the classroom where exposure is likely to lead to anaphylactic shock, with the possibility of death a real risk. It was mentioned that awareness of the child or other children could be a mitigating factor. But 40 9- and 10-year-olds running around in the playground at break times are unlikely to pay much heed to that, regardless of how much they're warned and reminded about it. We've examined possible ways to mitigate the risk, but pollarding the tree is not an option due to the size, and nets are also impractical in this location, as is cordoning off the area affected. I wish to acknowledge that the mitigation measures suggested to remove the fruits early each autumn by an arborist using lifting equipment that has been suggested could be done, but will never eliminate 100% of the risk, or help in a warm year where we've seen a June drop of fruits such as this year. I would finish by adding that due to the location of the tree, I do counter the limited amenity to the school or surrounding properties. As has been mentioned, it is glimpses of the tree that are seen, not a clear view of the tree due to the height of the surrounding properties, although I acknowledge it is visible from the rear of the properties on Guy Lane. I'd also add that the additional TPO on a walnut tree in the grounds of the school that was issued at the same time is not being challenged, because we have measures specifically in place to reduce the risk from that tree to manage it effectively. Finally, the school would vow to put in place the planting of additional trees as mature as we can make them in other locations in the grounds that are not nut trees, to replace this tree if removal is approved. Thank you.
Mr. Main, thank you very much indeed, and you didn't need to be reminded of the fact that your time was fast running out. Thank you very much indeed for that. I have to say, this is the first for me. I've seen quite a few TPOs, never one with the background as we have here tonight. And so I thank Mr. Main there for his comments. I saw one or two people putting their hands up earlier. So Councillor Salter, I think you wished to comment, didn't you? Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, I did indicate earlier, having heard the comments, my question has been partially answered anyway. That question was, what do the parents of the child think with respect to it, and are they satisfied that mitigation be sufficient? It seemed, I must admit, well intended, but it seemed rather overkill to remove a tree of that nature on a possible problem, but I hadn't considered what was being brought to us, the fact that yes, the oils from the nuts could be trodden into the school from playing, so it goes a lot further than face value, I think, on this one. It's take a lot of consideration. There's an awful lot of factors to be considered.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Salter. Yes, there are some, obviously, has been alluded to, some very serious implications, potentially anyway. Councillor Evans, please.
Yes, Chairman. Mr. Hare has put forward a good case for retention of this tree. And I'm saying this because I have a nut allergy and I have had an anaphylactic attack, and it isn't present. But what concerns me is this tree is 70 years old and has potentially got 130 years left. And so to me, it would be very disappointing to fell a tree of this nature and this maturity. I wish I was only middle-aged at 70 years old, but it's not, I'm not. And I totally understand what we've been told about the child, but I really feel the child that we're told is 10 years old, and there are other children with nut allergies in the school, but the child will be moving elsewhere in the not too distant future, maybe onto another playground or whatever. So I would support the retention of this tree.
Thank you. So you're officially proposing support for that, aren't you? Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Evans. Councillor Hughes, please.
Yes, I think this is a very difficult one, but I do want to echo some of what Guy said, and I googled nut allergies in schools and came to the UK allergy site, and it clearly is a big issue about trees, nuts and schools. But on balance, the advice seemed to be that there could be mitigation, and so I think it's very difficult, but I do think a tree that will be hit there for another 170 years, a 10-year-old who was we'll have to learn self-management and will never be 100% safe. So I think very narrowly, I would support the tree preservation.
Thank you. So are you seconding that you're
Yeah,
formally
seconding.
seconding? Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments, please? Do we have any other comments at all? Councillor Checkham, you're just slightly out of my peripheral vision there. Thank you. I do apologise.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation, really. I don't think you can get rid of 100% safe environment from nuts. I've got a walnut tree, not in my garden, but my neighbour's garden. In my garden, it doesn't matter how far away the walnut tree is, the squirrels aren't going to stick to the boundaries. And if you've got one walnut tree anywhere in the area, you're going to end up with walnuts in that area. Partial mitigation may be that if children are playing in that area, then they have different choosers to go out into the playground with. Just an additional thought, so that the concept of things being trodden through the school is minimised. The children could have trodden in something on the way through the park to get to school in the first place, or anywhere around Cathedral Close or anywhere else. I understand the need to keep children as safe as possible, but I really have to support the nomination in relation to preserving the tree.
Councillor Checklin, thank you very much indeed. Any other comments at all, please? I mean, I fully understand that there is a potential risk. As Councillor Checklin has said as Vice Chairman, he said that minimising risk to zero is impossible to do. We don't live in a world where there is no risk, I'm afraid. And it's really balancing that risk and taking the necessary measures to try and mitigate. Obviously, Gareth Hare has suggested that there is an assiduous exercise to sweep up the fallen nuts at certain times of year. And also, of course, those nuts can be extracted from the tree or removed from the tree by the means which was suggested, the cherry picker. And whilst I fully understand that there is a desire for that tree to be removed because the risk is assumed or considered to be extreme, I think there is mitigation. There are measures which can be taken to reduce that risk. So it is all about balancing that risk. And members, that is what you're here for this evening. And you've heard the views expressed by our arboricultural officer, Gareth Hare. You've also heard the views of the representative of the Cathedral School, Mr. Main. And it has been proposed by Councillor Evans, and it's been seconded by Councillor Hughes, that they are suggesting that the TPO should be served. So if I could take a vote, please, members. It has been proposed, as I say, and it's been seconded. So I just need to see a show of hands, please, members. Those of you who wish to support the officer's recommendation for serving this TPO, please. You could raise your hands. I think that's unanimous.
It's unanimous.
It is unanimous. Okay, so that is unanimous in terms of the members' votes. So in that case, the TPO, which is 2023/00482 oblique.
Chair, can we just indicate that that's confirmation of the TPO?
Yeah. So that is confirmation of that TPO being served. 2023/00482 oblique TPO. Thank you very much indeed, members, for that. I also thank Mr. May for his speaking tonight as well, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Members, we now move on then to the next item. And of course, I've already alluded to the fact that the Friary application will not be discussed this evening for reasons which have already been discussed. So we now move on to the next item, which is yes, thank you. So this is now application 23/00573/COU, and this is the barn conversion at Canwell. And to take us through this one, I'm going to ask Kerry. Yeah, so Kerry Challoner. will be taking us through this one. And so, Kerry, thank you very much indeed. This is an application which is being brought to planning committee members because of something which has cropped up before, where the county council takes the view that this is an unsustainable location, and that in terms of highways, it considers this not to be sustainable. The officer's recommendation, I think, is different to that, but we will hear that from Kerry as she takes us through it now. Kerry Chandler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's working. Good evening, members. So this item 2 on the agenda this evening relates to an agricultural building off London Road in Camwell. Don't think, oh, the highlighter is working. So that's the site outlined in red. This is London Road to the front of it. You got Slade Road running up to the north there, and then this is the A38 to the back of the site. The site is in a rural location. It is an existing barn, an existing building, and what I should point out on here is that's an existing children's nursery. We've got some barn conversions already up here, which were an allocated site in our current local plan, and we've got some residential properties here. And just immediately to the south of the site is another agricultural building. So we've just got some photographs of the building here. It's a brick and tile building, pretty traditional in appearance. And then that building to the back is the one I've just mentioned, which is also agricultural, but it's quite open-sided. Sorry, just back to that one. There is also a shed mentioned, a brick shed mentioned in the report. That's that little building here. That will be retained as part of the proposals. So just to point out on this, you can't, I don't know if you can see it better than I can, but there's a flat roof section on this end of the building. And what they effectively want to do is continue that gable roof along over this flat roof section. So the proposals would see a conversion of the existing building into a 4-bed dwelling. The plans have been amended during the course of the application. I think originally they wanted to raise the roof a bit higher. There was dormer windows involved, which obviously takes away from the traditional appearance of the building. Our rural development SPD says that it's a good way of reusing an existing building. However, we should be using the existing building and not extending it lots. We consider that adding the roof over the flat roof section is an aesthetic good addition to the building, whereas if you start to add lots of domestic features, then we're going away from what the policy says we should be doing. So the plans on the screen show what we are doing, and I should also point out that there is a fallback position for the applicant here, and that they could already convert this building because they have consent under permitted development class Q of the GPDO. The permitted development does not include the roof section, because they need this area up here, the flat roof section, to sort of achieve that. So just make sure I've gone through everything. As the chair said, it's before you this evening because of highway objections. They object to the site not being in a sustainable location. We've got no objections from the parish council or neighbour responses. And the recommendation before you this evening is to approve subject to conditions. And I think there's 8 conditions set out in the report, which includes the removal of PD rights.
Kerry, thank you very much indeed for that. Reasonably straightforward, members, as I said, and has been reinforced there by Kerry. This is before us because of the county council highways. Somewhat arbitrarily, it has to be said, taking the view that this is unsustainable. I believe it's true to say that other authorities do not necessarily take the same view in respect of highways. So when I talk about it being an arbitrary view, that is actually correct. So it's for you to decide. This application is reasonably straightforward, and it's already been approved under prior notification, hasn't it, as you pointed out. It's only really the roof and the addition of the tiled roof there in respect of it not being a flat roof, which is the major change. So they can already go ahead and turn this into a dwelling. They have that permission already. So we're just really discussing whether the plans in front of you with that gable roof is acceptable, and whether you think that this is a sustainable location, whether you take a different view to county highways. So members, do you have any comments, any questions, please? Yes, Councillor Mears, please.
Hi, good evening, Chairman.
Yes,
Um,
please.
I have got some information to add to this application. That corner where the school and the other houses are on the other side of the road. Yeah, where the housing development is on the other corner, they've put a number of houses there and they've got huge problems with parking, bins, all that kind of stuff. It's a known accident black spot, and it was a black spot before they built those houses. Having that many people coming onto that junction has added to the problems there. They've applied for further housing on that corner and to use the fields as well. So if that goes through, I think the potential for that corner becoming a total nightmare, more than it is now, is highly possible. I think with the planning application that's up for discussion now, it's for a 2-bed dwelling, I believe, and 3 bed. Four. Originally, I didn't look back. Was it 2?
It got consent for 2.
For 2, yes. So with a 4-bed, you could consider that more people would be living at that dwelling, and I think they're worried about the number of cars that were travelling to and from the dwelling, going to that crossroad, and the potential with accidents there with it being right next to a school. That might be the angle of them considering it to be unsustainable, with the fact that the houses the other side of the road park there all the time. A lot of them haven't got off-road parking, and the cars take up quite a lot of space on the road and make it difficult to have two-way traffic down there to actually get to where they would like to put the houses. And so in the day-to-day living of that site, I think that could be part of the reason why they're saying it's unsustainable. And they've also applied for planning permission for the Dutch barns there, and I believe they've got planning for 2 separate residents there. So you could potentially have maybe up to 10 people coming and going from that site, coupled with the school traffic, coupled with the traffic from the other side of the road. And it's a fast bit of road there because everybody's heading up to the Bassett's Pole. So I think they're looking towards the future to prevent it becoming an absolute black spot. That's what I've said.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Mears. I think if I just read out the second part of the highways objection. So we have the unsustainability aspect. The second part says the proposed development would exacerbate the risk of conflict between vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists due to the lack of crossing facilities on an A-class road, subject to the national speed limit, leading to an increase in the likelihood of danger to highway users, particularly those considered vulnerable. That in many ways, I think, perhaps supports the view that you've just made there, doesn't it, Councillor Mears, to a large extent? As I say, the main reason I think it's highways have objected is on sustainability grounds, but I think there is a second, a subplot, if you like, to their point, their objection. So if I could just ask Kerry to come back on that one, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think it will help if I give you a bit of the background. This, I think my red, no, it's a bit iffy. There we go. At the top, the barn conversions at the top. There was an application at the back of there, which was, I think, for about 8 houses, which was recently dismissed by the planning inspectorate. And that was dismissed on the basis of that's an unsustainable location, which it is. However, this, and yes, we don't shy away from that. This is an unsustainable location. However, we do have a policy that says that you can convert an existing building into a dwelling, and that's a different form of sustainability in itself. So we do support conversions. In terms of the highways objection was not just on the fact that it's unsustainable and people have to use a car, they also objected on the lack of footpaths and the lack of public transport, but that's inherent in rural buildings. So if we say no to all barn conversions, then we'd be saying no to any more houses in the countryside, which isn't sustainable in itself. So I think the local plan sets out a kind of balanced approach to future development, and this, in officers' view, completely complies with that. Highways, they object to all houses outside, but they're not looking at our policy. So as the report sets out, there are other factors that we have to take into consideration. So hopefully that explains where highways were coming from with it.
Thank you very much, Kerry. What I would say as well, Councillor Mears, you mentioned the fact that there is the possibility of future development adjacent to this site or very close to this site, and that may well be the case. Unfortunately, we can only make a judgment on what's before us. We cannot take into account what might come in the future. That would be tantamount to crystal ball gazing, and if I was any good at crystal ball gazing, I wouldn't still be working for a living. So do we have any other views, please, which need to be expressed? Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, a lot of points have been made, because Highways told us when we had the planning training that they were going to object to everything like this because of the fact that there are no bus routes and there are no pavements, etc., and people will be using their cars. But as you have said, we are looking at this application on its merit. We can't consider anything else that may or may not happen in the future. So I note that there haven't been objections from other people, and therefore I can't see that if they really wanted to object, they had the opportunity to do that. But I would like to ask how much actual parking is going to be available on this land, because as far as I can see, there's no reason why we shouldn't agree to it going ahead, subject to the conditions and everything that's been pointed out to us.
Thank you very much. I shall ask Kerry to come back on that about the parking, please, Kerry.
Yes, this application, also seeks to rationalise the Class Q approval. So Class Q, if you get consent under that, the area of land can only be the size of the barn that you're converting. You can't just draw a red line and have as much. Whereas this site is actually bigger than the Class Q consent to allow more parking, and there's plenty of room within the site to achieve the necessary 3 spaces.
Thank you, Kerry. I'm just looking here at 4.3. The site provides for garden areas to serve the new dwelling and 2 number off-road parking spaces. Have I missed something there? That's 4.3 on page. Let's have a look. I'm not sure what page. It's under 4.3 anyway. That's right, where you've got, yeah, okay. I was just slightly confused because it does clearly say 2 number off-road parking spaces.
Sorry, that was me. 3 and 4 bedroom properties require 2 spaces, and there's plenty of room for 2 spaces, which is what's out.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, yes, please. Councillor Rushton, please.
Thank you. Given the both local plan and national plan to convert these kind of buildings into new dwelling, and the construction of the new roof, I think, in fitting with or makes it look nicer, I'd be happy to propose to approve the proposals.
Councillor Rushton, thank you very much indeed. Yes, you make the point that the pitched roof will be more congruous perhaps than a flat roof. Yes, of course. Do we have, I think,
second.
You're happy to second. Thank you very much. So that's Councillor Ashton is happy to second that proposal then. Thank you. So members, without further ado, I think we've had a fairly good discussion about this, and Kerry Challoner has answered your questions as far as I can ascertain. I don't think my Vice Chairman, do you have any comments to all? No, thank you very much. In that case then, members, it has been proposed for approval in accordance with the officer's recommendation by Councillor Rushton. and it's been seconded by Councillor Ashton. Could I please have a show of hands for those of you willing to support this application? Thank you. That's 8, isn't it? Do we have any against, please? Do we have any abstentions? We have 1 abstention. Okay, thank you very much indeed. In that case, then, members, that application is approved by 8 votes and with 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Members, we now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 23/00326/COU. That's change of use, and this is Little Pipe House, Little Pipe Lane at Lichfield. So I'm going to ask Kerry Challoner to go through this one as well. Kerry, I do apologise. I know you've only just returned from holiday. I think this time yesterday you were probably still on holiday. So a bit of a, you've hit the ground running, haven't you, today? But if you'd be kind enough to take us through this application, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So item 3 on the agenda is another barn conversion. And I feel like it's Groundhog Day. I think I had a couple last month as well. So we're at Little Pipe House, Little Pipe Lane. And again, we've received objections from Highways on sustainability grounds, and that there's no ways connecting future residents to amenities and so on. Little Pipe House is just to the north of the site there, and the building that we're looking at is this building here, the square building. It's accessed along this lane off the main road, and there are a number of barn conversions up here. So the aerial photograph shows pretty much how rural it is. And then we've got some photographs there. So this is the access to the site, photograph 1. Photograph 2 is showing the existing building, which is currently used as storage for Little Pipe House. And the conversion of the barn would be to a 4-bedroom dwelling. The barn would be reclad, and it would also have integrated garage parking spaces, but also parking outside as well. The barn sits opposite an existing larger barn, and that photograph 4 is Little Pipe House at the bottom there. There's been some ecology and tree issues with the site, and I think we amended the red line to make sure that there was enough garden area for a property of that size. And also, as part of the recommendation, the site is within the Cannock Chase SAP zone. So because it's a new dwelling, we will need mitigation money. So that'll all be secured via a legal agreement. And we just got one more slide there showing the layout. So that shows the garage spaces that I was talking about. It's one of those upside down barns where all the living space is kind of upstairs, along with the master bedroom, and the other bedrooms are all on the ground floor there. This slide's showing the elevations. We've got conditions to make sure that we get really good cladding and really good materials. And that is the end of my presentation. The recommendation before you this evening is to approve, subject to the Section 106 agreement, a unilateral undertaking, and the conditions as set out in the report.
Kerry, thank you very much indeed for that. We do have a speaker for this one, and this is the applicant's agent, and it's Louise Hinsley from CT Planning. And Louise, if it's all right to call you Louise.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes. I think you know how it works. You've been here before. So 5 minutes with 30 seconds still to go. If you're still speaking, you will be reminded that you've only got that amount of time to go before you have to stop. Okay, you've got 5 minutes. That time starts as soon as you begin speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, committee. I won't be too long because I think we've touched on most of the points with the previous application. But I just wanted to reiterate the points in support of this application that have been raised by your planning officer. Whilst Highways have raised concerns regarding the location of the site in terms of its sustainability, the application, as mentioned by your planning officer, is fully in accordance with national and local policy, which support the reuse of rural buildings, accepting that as they are in rural locations, they will commonly be found in isolated locations. To insist that the conversion of rural buildings should be served by roads with pavements and streetlights would in fact negate the policy. We agree with your planning officer that other sustainable matters should be weighed against the concerns raised by officers and the environmental capital benefits gained from reusing an existing building to positively contribute towards the district's housing needs, which should be given sufficient weight in this application. The NPPF advises that applications should only be refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable level of harm to the road network. Highways are in agreement that appropriate parking is provided for on site and sufficient visibility displays have been demonstrated, showing that it is safe to manoeuvre off the site. As the proposal relates to the provision of one dwelling, the trip generation as a result of the development is not significant and would not have a detrimental impact upon highway safety. Your officers have concluded that the principle of development, the conversion of an existing building to provide a new dwelling within the rural area, would be in accordance with policies contained in the local plan strategy and the national framework, and is therefore deemed acceptable. We agree with the recommendation of support from your planning officer, and as such, we consider that the application should be supported this evening by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much there to Louise Hinsdale for CT Planning on behalf of the applicant's agent. Councillor Evans, please.
Yes, Chairman. I don't want to reiterate what I've already said, and I think that when I looked, there have been no objections except from highways, not from neighbours or anybody else. So I would move approval of this application.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Evans. Thank you for that. So you're moving approval to Councillor Vernon.
Chairman, I would go ahead and second that on the
Thank you.
basis of what has just been said.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay. I don't think there's any point in discussing this further because we've already touched on some of those points with the previous one, and we understand the implications of what it is highways are trying to achieve, whilst it is in complete conflict with the Class Q, which is also part of the NPPF. So this is something which will need to be discussed, I think, at a higher level within the planning department, but otherwise we're going to be seeing this situation arising ad infinitum, and that would not be satisfactory. Thank you. So it has been proposed for approval by Councillor Evans, and it's been seconded by Councillor Vernon. And with that, members, all I need to do is request a show of hands for those of you in support of this application, which would be in accordance with the officer's recommendation. And I think that is unanimous. That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Members, thank you very much indeed for your attendance this evening. It's a slightly shorter agenda than we would have expected due to the unforeseen circumstances. I'm very grateful to the speakers who have contributed this evening. I'd like to thank all the officers as well, and of course, members, I must thank all of you for attending this evening and for your deliberations and your indulgence. With that, I'm going to sign off. The next meeting will be on the 2nd of October. I'm afraid I shan't be able to take that meeting. I'm not here, but my vice chairman is already aware of the fact that he will be in the hot seat. So until I probably return, I think is it end of October or early November. Thank you very much indeed. And for all of those who are watching online, thank you indeed for joining us, and good night. I declare the meeting closed at 6:55. Thank you.